Sham Sharadava Nalalida Loka Pranaya Karuna Gana Ganatam Sham Sharadava Nalalida Loka Tranaya Karuna Anaganatam Prapta Sakalyana Gunanavasya Vande Gurashri Charanaruvrindam Prapta Saka Gunanavasya Vande Gurashri Charanaruvrindam Vande Gurashri Charanaruvrindam Vande Gurashri Charanaruvrindam Vande Gurashri Charanaruvrindam Mahaprabhu Kirtana Nitya Gita Vaditramadhyam Manasura Sena Mahaprabhu Kirtana Nitya Gita Romanchakam Pasru Taranga Vajo Vande Gurashri Charanaruvrindam Shri Vigrahara Dhana Nityanana Shringaratanma Niramarjanado Shri Vigrahara Dhana Nityanana Yuktasya Bhaktamsya Niyunjatopi Vande Gurashri Charanaruvrindam Chaturvidha Shri Bhagavad Prasada Swatana Triptan Hari Bhakta Sangha Bhagavad Prasada Satana Kripta Harivakta Sangha Kritva Tripti Bhajata Sadeva Vande Gurashri Charanaruvrindam Shiradikama Vavayurapara Madhurya Leela Gunarupanamna Para Madhurya Leela Pratikchanasa Dhanalopasya Vande Gurashri Charanaruvrindam Vande Gurashri Ne Kunjayono Ratikeli Siddhai Jajali Bhir Juktir Apekshaneya Ne Kunjayono Ratikeli Siddhai Jajali Bhir Juktir Tatrati Daksha Ativalabhasya Vande Gurashri Charanaruvrindam Ativalavasya Sakchadharidena Samasta Shastri Ruktastatthava Vataiva Sadvi Sakyadharidena Ruktastatthava Vataiva Sadvi Kintu Prabhoja Priyaeva Tasya Vande Gurashi Charanaravinda Vande Gurashi Yasya Prasada Bhagavad Prasada Yasya Prasada Nagati Kutapi Yasya Prasada Bhagavad Prasado Yasya Prasadam Nagati Kuta Dhyayam Stuvam Tasya Yasatrin Sandhyam Vande Gurashi Charanaravrindam Dhyayam Stuvam Tasya Yasatrin Sandhyam Vande Gurashi Charanaravrindam Yasatrin Sandhyam Vande Gurashi Charanaravrindam Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namah Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nitina Namaste Sarasvate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunavadi Pachatari Shatarine Namaste Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pachatari Shatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Shri Chaitanya Nityananda Gadadhara Shivasari Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Nityananda Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare Bol Hare Rama Hare Rama Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama Rama Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama Rama Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Bol, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hariyaraya Namah, Krishna Jadavaya Namah, Jadavaya Madhavaya Kesavaya Namah, Gopal Govindaram Shri Madhusudan, Giridhari Gopinath Madana Mohan, Shri Chaitanya Nityananda Shri Advaita Sita, Hari Guru Vaishnava Bhagavad-Gita, Shri Rupa Sanatan Bhattara Guna, Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasara Guna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Shri Shri Radha Nila Madhav, Radha Nila Madhav Radhe, Jayo Jagannath, Jayo Baladeva, Jayo Subhadrama, Jayo Sudarshan Chakra, Jaya Sitaram, 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 Jaya Lakshman Hanuman, Sitaram, Nitai Gaura Haribo, 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 Nitai Gaura Haribo, 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 Nitai Gaura Pramanandi, Jai Vishwapara Paramhansa Prabhajagacharya Suttara Saraswati Srimad, His Divine Grace Abhocharavina Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, ISKCON Pratishta Bhiviti Samstapaka Char Vaishnava Siramanin Patit Pavana, Srila Prabhupada Ji Maharaj Ki Jai, Shri Gauriya Guru Varga Patiti Udhare Ki Jai, Shri Rupa Sanatana Bhattara Gunata Shri Jiva, Gopala Bhatta Dasa Guna Sadgoswami Prabhu Ki Jai, Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ji Ki Jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda Ki Jai, Prem Se Kaho Se Krishna, Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar, Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai, Jai Param Dayal Shri Nityananda Prabhu Ki Jai, जय प्रमनाम संकीर्तने का जनक प्रेम पुरुषोत्तम श्री सच्चिदानंद स्मरण गौरंग चैतन्य महाप्रभु गौर हरि मावरण अवतार की जय। गोलोकेर प्रमधान हरिनाम संकीर्तन जग की जय। जुग धर्म हरे कृष्ण महामंत्र की जय। बृहद मृदंग ट्रांसलेंटल बुक डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन सेवा की जय। श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप राधा कुंद श्याम कुंद गिरिराज गोवर्धन की जय। श्री ब्रजभूमि वृंदावन मथुरा की जय। तेलोशिव श्री शिव राधा नीलमाधव की जय। श्री श्री मायापुर नवद्वीप एक चक्रधाम की जय। परम करुण श्री गौर निताय की जय। श्री पुरुषोत्तम क्षेत्र जगन्नाथपुरी धाम की जय। श्री श्री जगन्नाथ स्वामी बलदेव प्रभु स्मार्त सुभद्र देवी सुदर्शन चक्र भगवान की जय। भक्ति सर्व विघ्न विघ्नाशन कन सिंह देव भगवान की जय। जगंगा माई जमुना माई की जय। तुलसी महारानी वृंदी देवी भक्ति देवी की जय। श्री मथुरा रानी की जय। समवेत भक्त वृंद की जय। Nittai Gaurari Pramanande. All glories to somebody bodies. All glories to somebody bodies. All glories to somebody bodies. All glories, all glories, all glories to Sri Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. Jai Haribo. Namaste Nadasi Maya. Namaste Nadasi Maya. Pralada Lada Da La da la da da Hiranaka se purbaksha Hiranaka se purbaksha Silatanka nakalaye Jaya silatanka nakalaye Ito nishinga parato nishinga Ito nishinga parato nishinga Jato jato jamita to nishinga Bayir nishinga Hrudaye nishinga Narashinga Madhini Sharanam Prapade Tabakara Kamalabare Naka Adabutta Shinga Dalita Hiranyakashipu Tanabhinga Kesavadita Narahari Rupa Jai Jagadisha Re Jai Jagadisha Re Jai Jagadisha Re Abakara Kamalare Naka Adabutta Shinga Kesavadruta Naradirupa Jai Jagadish Hare Jai Jagadish Hare Jai Jagadish Hare Kesavadruta Jai Jagadish Hare Jai Jagadish Hare Jai Jagadish Hare Jaya Nishing Hare Jaya Nishing Hare Nishing Hare Jaya Nishing Hare Jaya Nara Hare Jaya Nara Hare Nara Hare Jaya Nara Hare Jaya Lakshmi Nara Singha Jaya Lakshmi Nara Singha Jaya Lakshmi Nara Singha Jaya Lakshmi Nara Singha Jaya Bhakta Prahlad Prahlad Maharaj Bhakta Prahlad Srila Prahlad Maharaj Nitai Gaura Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitai Gaura Hari Bol Jai Shri Shri Bhakti Pata Sarvagna Vignashana Kanishingari Bhagavan Ki Jai Jai Bhakta Shrista Prahlad Maharaj Ki Jai Nitai Gaura Hare Premanande Hari Hari Bol Shri Vrindai Tulasi Vai Priya Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi Satavataye Namaha Vrindai Tulasi Vai Priya Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi Satavataye Namaha Vrindai Tulasi Vai Priya Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi Satavataye Namaha Jai Shrimati Tulasi Maharani Vrindadevi Ki
Namo Nama Tulasi Krishna Preyasi Namo Nama
Tulasi Krishna Preyasi Namo Namo
Tulasi Krishna Preyasi Namo Nama.
Tulasi Krishna Preyasi Nama Nama.
Radha Krishna Seva Pabo Eya Vilashi.
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 Jitomar Sharanaloy Tara Vanshapurna
Jitomar Sharanala Tara Vanshapurna.
Kripa Kori Korotare Vrindavanavasi. Moraya Vilas Vilas Kujeriya Vas.
Moraya Vilas Vilas Kujeriya Vas.
Nayane Heri Bhausada Jugala Ruparashi.
Aminayane Sada Jugala Ruparasi.
Hey Nivedana Daro Sakiranugata Koro.
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 Sevadi Karadiye Koro Nijadasi.
Sevayadi Karadiye Koro Nijadasi.
Sevadi Karadiye Koro Nijadasi.
Sevayadi Karadiye Koro Nijadasi.
Dina Krishna Dase Koi Eye Namora.
Dina Krishna Das Koi Eye Namora.
Dina Krishna Dase Koi Eye Namora.
Dina Krishna Das Koi Eye Namora.
Shri Radha Govinda Preme Sadaye Navasi.
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 Yani Kani Chapapani.
Yani Kani Chapapani. Brahmajyoti Kanisha. Tani Tani Pranasanti Pradakshina Paripadi. Jani Kani Sapapani Brahmajyoti Kanisha. Tani Tani Pranasanti Pradakshina Paripadi. Jani Kani Sapapani Brahmajyoti Kanisha. Tani Tani Pranasanti Pradakshina Paripadi.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Jaya Tulsi Maharani Jaya Tulsi Maharani Jaya Tulsi Maharani Jaya Tulsi Maharani
Jaya Tulsi Maharani Jaya Tulsi Maharani Tulsi Maharani Jaya Tulsi Maharani
Jaya Vrinda Devi Jaya Vrinda Devi Jaya Vrinda Devi Jaya Vrinda Devi
Jaya Vrinda Devi Jaya Vrinda Devi Jaya Vrinda Devi Jaya Vrinda
Nitagaya Haribol 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 Nitagaya Haribol
Haribo Haribo Nitagaya Haribo Shri Vrindai Tulasi Vai Priya Ke Sava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi Shatavataye Namo Namaha Vrindayai Tulasi Vai Priya Ke Sava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi Shatavataye Namo Namaha Vrindayai Tulasi Devai Priyayai Ke Sava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi Shatavataye Namo Namaha Shrimati Tulasi Maharani Vrindadevi Ki Jai Hey Vrinda Maharani Ki Vrindadevi Ki Oh, Tulsi, beloved Krishna, I bow before you again and again. My desire to obtain the service of Shri Radha and Krishna. Whoever takes shelter of you has wishes fulfilled. Bestow your mercy upon him, you make him resident of Vrindavan. My desire is that you also give me a residence, pleasure groves of Shri Vrindavan Dham. Thus within my vision, I will always behold the beautiful pastimes of Radha and Krishna. I beg you to make me a follower carrying the images of Raj. Please give me the privilege of devotional service and make me own maid servant. This very fallen and lowly servant Krishna praise. May I always swim in love Shri Radha and Govind. Shri Mati Tulsi Maharani Vrindadevi Ki Jai. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Shri Krastakam Ki Jai. Chaito Darpana Madhanam Pavamadava Nivapanam Shri Akaya Chandika Vitaranam Vidyavadhutinam Anandam Buddhivardhanam Padipadam Purnamrita Shadanam Sarvatmasnam Shri Krishna Sankirtanam Nam Namakari Baudha Nija Sarva Shaktis Tatra Pita Niyamita Smarane Nakala Pita Vishi Tavakupa Bhavanamapi Durdhaivam Idisham Yajanina Nuraga Trinadapi Sanichaina Tarorapi Saishnuna Amaninamana Kirtaniya Sada Hari Na Dhanam Na Janam Na Sundarim Kavitam Va Jagadi Shakamaye Mama Janmani Janmani Shari Bhavatar Bhakti Rahaitu Kitvai Ai Nandatanuja Kinkaram Paritama Vishameva Vambudau Kripaya Tapapara Pankaja Sthita Dhuri Sadrisham Vichintaya Nayanam Galorashrodharaya Vadanam Gadu Gadarudhaya Gira Pulakairi Chitam Vapu Kada Tavanama Grahane Bhavisati Jugaitam Nimishena Chakyusha Prabhusa Itam Shunya Itam Jagat Sarvam Govinda Virahe Name Asli Shava Padaratam Pinashtumam Adarshnar Marma Atam Karotuva Jata Tathava Vidadhatulam Pato Mat Pranatastu Saivana Para Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Shri Krastakam Ki Jai Namo Mahavarannaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishna Krishna Chaitanya Namine Gauratve Namaha. Glory to the Shri Krishna Sankirtana, which cleanses the heart of all the dust accumulated for years and extinguishes the fire of conditional life of repeated birth and death. This Sankirtan moment is the prime benediction for humanity at large because it spreads the rays of the benediction moon. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss and enables us to fully taste the nectar for which we're always anxious. O my Lord, your holy name alone can render all benediction to living beings, and thus your hundreds and millions of names like Krishna and Govinda. In these transcendental names, you have invested all your transcendental energies. There are not even hard and fast rules for chanting these names. O my Lord, out of kindness, you enable us to easily approach you by holy names, but I'm so unfortunate that I have no attraction for them. Once you chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself Lord and strolling the street, one should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and should be ready to offer all respect to others. In such state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your causeless devotional service, birth after birth. O son of Maharaj Nanda Krishna, I am your eternal servitor. Yet somehow or other I have fallen in this ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up from this ocean of death and place me as one of the atoms at your lotus feet. O my Lord, when will my eyes be decorated with tears of love flowing constantly when I chant your holy name? When will my voice choke up? And will the hairs of my body stand on the end of the recitation of your name? O Govinda, feeling your separation, I am considering a moment to be like 12 years or more. Tears are flowing from my eyes like torrents of rain, and I'm feeling all vacant in the world in your absence. I know no one but Krishna as my Lord, and it should remain so, even if it handles me roughly by his embrace, or makes me broken-hearted by not being present before me. He is completely free to do anything and everything, for he is always my worshipful Lord, unconditionally. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Shri Kristakam Ki Jai. There are 10 offenses in matter of chanting the holy name of the Lord that should be avoided. They are as follows. 1, to blaspheme the devotees who dedicate their life for propagating the holy name of the Lord. 2, to consider names of demigods, Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma, to be equal to or independent of the name Lord Vishnu. 3. To disobey the orders of the spiritual master. 4. To blaspheme the Vedic literatures or literatures and pursuance of Vedic version. 5. To consider the glory of chanting Hare Krishna to be imagination. 6. To give some interpretation to the holy name of the Lord. 7. To commit sinful activities on strength of chanting the holy name of the Lord. 8. To consider the chanting of Hare Krishna as one of the auspicious ritualistic activities which are often Vedas as fruitive activity, karma kanda. 9. To instruct the faithless person about the glories of the holy name. And 10. To not have complete faith in chanting with the holy names, and to maintain material attachments even after understanding so many instructions on this matter. It is also an offense to be inattentive while chanting. Every devotee who claims to be Vaishnava must carefully guard against these 10 offenses in order to quickly achieve the desired success, Krishna Prema. Now let us offer our most humble obeisance unto all the Vaishnavas, devotees of the Lord. They are just like desire trees. They can fulfill the desires of everyone, and they are full of compassion for the fallen conditioned souls. Vancha kalpatarubhyacha kripa sindhubhyacha paritanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Jai Ananta Kuti Vaishnavrinda ki jai.
Shrimad Radha Srila Govinda Devo Prastali Bihi Sevyamana Smarami Shriman Rasa Rasa Namaste Bhutali Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Tanami. Namaste Saraswati Devi Guru Vani Pacharine Nirvisesa Sunyavai Paskati Rastha. Shri Guru Pranama prayers ki jai. Shri Brahmasamita ki jai. Ishwara Parama Krishna Sachitananda Vigraha Anadi Radhi Govinda Sarva Karana Karanam Chintamini Prakara Satma Sukalpa Riksha Laksha Vritesa Surabir Abhipalyantam Lakshmi Sahasra Satasambhrama Sevyamanam Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Venam Kanantam Aravinda Dalayataksham Parhavatam Samasitam Buddha Sundarangam Kandarpa Kotika Maniya Vishesha Sobam Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Alola Chandra Kalasadvana Malyavamse Ratnam Gadam Pranayakeli Kalavilasam Shamam Tribanga Lalita Niyata Prakasam Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Angani Yasya Sakalendriya Vrittimanti Pasyanti Panti Kalyanti Chiram Jaganti Ananda Chinmaya Sadujvala Vigrahasya Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Advaitam Achyutam Anadim Ananta Rupam Adyam Purana Purusham Navayovanam Cha Vedesa Durlabam Adurlabam Atma Bhakto Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Pantastakoti Satavatsara Sampragamyo Vayoratapi Manaso Munipungamanam Sopyasti Yat Prapadasimya Vichintya Tatve Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Ekopya Sora Chaitam Jagadanda Koti Yas Chakti Rasti Jagadanda Chayadanta Andanta Rasta Paramanu Chayanta Rastam Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Yad Bhava Bhavita Diyo Manajasta Taiva Samprapya Rupa Mahima Sanayana Busar Suktarya Meva Nigama Pratitaistuvanti Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Ananda Chinmaya Rasam Pratibhavitabhis Tavirya Eva Nicharupa Tayakalabi Goloka Eva Nivasata Kilatma Bhuto Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Premanjana Charita Bhakti Vilochanena Santak Sadeva Hidesa Vilokayanti Yam Shama Sundaram Achintya Gunaswarupam Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Ramadi Murti Sukalani Menatista Nana Avatar Makarod Bhuvanesa Kintu Krishna Swayam Samabhavat Paramam Pumanyo Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Yasya Prabha Prabhavato Jagananda Koti Kotisvasesa Vasudati Vibhuti Bhinam Tad Brahma Niskalam Anantam Ashesa Bhutam Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Maya Yasya Jagananda Satani Sute Traigunya Tad Vishayavir Vitayamanam Sattva Valambi Parasattvam Vishwada Sattvam Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Ananda Chinmaya Rasat Mataya Manasu Ya Prani Nam Patifalam Smaratam Upetya Lila Yatena Bhuvanani Jaya Yajasram Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Goloka Namni Nichitamni Tale Chatasyam Devi Mahesu Haridam Satesu Tesu Te Te Prabhava Nichaya Vitaschayena Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Shrististati Pralaya Sadhava Sakti Reka Chayeva Yasya Bhuvanani Vivarti Durga Ichana Rupam Yasya Chachesta Tesa Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Shiram Yatada Divikara Visesa Yoga Sanjayate Naita Tapritakasti Heto Yasambhutam Apitata Samapaitikar Yat Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Diparchadevi Dasantaram Abhyapetya Dipayate Vivitahetu Sadaram Dharma Yastajakeva Hichavishrutaya Vibhati Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Akarna Narnava Jale Bhajatisma Yoga Nidram Ananta Jagadanda Saroma Kupaha Adhara Saktim Avalambe Param Samurtim Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Yashaika Nisvasitakala Matavalambya Jivanti Loma Vilaja Jagadanda Nata Vishnu Mahansa Yasya Kalavisesu Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Basmanya Tasma Sakalesha Nijesha Teja Sriyam Kiyat Prakatayat Apitadvadatra Brahmaya Esa Jagadanda Vidanu Karta Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Yat Pada Palava Yugam Vinidaya Kumbha Dwande Pranama Samayesa Ganadi Raja Vignan Vihanta Malavasya Jagatrayasya Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Agnir Mahiga Ganamam Pumarudisasya Kalasta Tatma Manasiti Jagatrayani Yasmad Bhavanti Vibhavanti Visanti Yamcha Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Yaschak Suresa Savita Sakala Grahana Raja Samasta Suramurti Rasesa Teja Yasya Gaya Brahma Mati Sambrita Kala Chakro Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Dharmota Papa Nichaya Sutayastapam Si Brahma Dikita Patakaba Tayasta Jiva Yadata Matari Baba Prakatapa Baba Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yastinder Gopa Matavenda Mahoswa Karma Bandhan Rupa Falabhajana Matanoti Karmani Nida Dikinchi Rupakti Bhajam Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yam Krodha Kama Saja Pranayadi Bitti Vatsalya Moha Guru Gaurav Vasavya Bhava Sanchintya Tasya Sarvisim Talmapurete Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Shriya Kanta Kanta Parama Purisha Kalpataravo Jumabu Mischintam Maniganam Mayitoyam Amritam Kataganam Yadyam Kamanam Abhivam Sipriyasaki Trilandam Anchuti Param Atita Aswajamapicha Sayatra Siradi Bhishavati Sirabi Byastasu Mahamnime Sardakya Vavrajati Nahia Trabrisamaya Bhaji Sritadvivam Tamaham Ihagolakam Ityam Yudantastas Santakshiti Rila Shati Karipaya Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Rama Samhita Ki Jai. Shikura Vastuka prayers Ki Jai. The spiritual master is receiving benedictions from the ocean of mercy, just as a cloud pours water on a forest fire to extinguish it. So the spiritual master extinguishes a blazing fire of material existence by I offer my respectful obeisance to Lotus Feet, such a spiritual master who is an ocean of auspicious qualities, chanting the holy name, dancing in ecstasy, singing and playing musical instruments. The spiritual master is always glad by the Sankirtan movement of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Because he is relishing the mellows of pure devotion within his mind, sometimes his hair stands on end, he feels quivering in his body, and tears flow from his eyes like waves. I offer my respectful obeisance to Lotus Feet as such a spiritual master. The spiritual master is always engaged in the temple worship of Shri Shri Radha and Krishna. He also engages his disciples in such worship. They dress the deities in beautiful clothes and ornaments, clean their temple, and perform similar worship of the Lord. I offer my respectful obeisance to Lotus Feet as such a spiritual master. The spiritual master is always offering Krishna 4 kinds of delicious food, analyzes that which is licked, chewed, drunk, and sucked. When the spiritual master sees that the devotees are satisfied by eating Bhagavad Prasada, he is satisfied. To offer my respectful obeisance to Lotus Feet as such a spiritual master. The spiritual master is always eager to hear and chant about the unlimited conjugal pastimes of Radhika and Madhava and their qualities, names, and forms. The spiritual master aspires to relish these at every moment. I offer my respectful obeisance to Lotus Feet as such a spiritual master. The spiritual master is very dear because he is expert at assisting gopis who at different times make different tasteful arrangements for the perfection of Radha and Krishna's conjugal loving affairs within the groves of Vrindavan. I offer my most humble obeisance to Lotus Feet as such a spiritual master. The spiritual master is to be honored as much as the Supreme Lord because he is the most confidential servant to the Lord. This is acknowledged in all revealed scriptures and followed by all authorities. Therefore, I offer my respectful obeisance to Lotus Feet as such a spiritual master who is a bona fide representative of Shri Hare Krishna. By the mercy of the spiritual master, one receives the benediction of Krishna. Without the grace of the spiritual master, one cannot make any advancement. Therefore, I should always remember and praise the spiritual master at least 3 times a day. I should offer my respectful obeisance to the Lotus Feet of my spiritual master, His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Gaura Premanandi Haribol. Today, we're going to have a special lecture because there was an important question asked by a devotee, and they were confused by the explanation of the jiva, and especially when it comes to the jiva soul that merges into the Brahman. And the question was if a Mayavadi can attain the Brahman, and if there are bona fide, let's say, impersonalists who attain the Brahman, are they equal or are they different? So that was the confusion of this person. And the answer to that question is not difficult, but it requires hearing direct statements, but rather than extrapolating, we learned what that word meant yesterday, or speculating. So we're going to have an explanation now. So the question is, are the Mayavadis who attain Brahman realization equal to the bona fide impersonalists who attain the position of Brahmajyoti, or will merge into the Brahmajyoti. Okay, so that's the question. It's not the fact, but that's the question. And to understand if there is a difference between the two. So, in a letter written in 1969 to Rupanuga Das, and Prabhupada says, regarding your question, what is the difference between the spirit souls comprising the Brahmajyoti and the spirit souls here in Maya? So this is a little bit different question. There are spirit souls, or souls in the material world that are in Maya, and there are souls in the Brahmajyoti. What is the difference between the two? And Prabhupada, so he first repeats the question asked to him by Rupanuga, and then he begins to answer. He says, in the Brahmajyoti, the spirit souls, on account of their impersonal views, are devoid of a body. Exactly like here in Maya, there are ghosts who are devoid of any gross bodies. So, when it says devoid of a body, he's talking about a material body. And also, there's another point that, well, let me finish what Prabhupada says, and then we'll talk some more about it. Exactly like here in Maya, there's ghosts who are devoid of any gross bodies. So in the material world, people who become ghosts, they do not have a gross material body. The ghost being devoid of a body, he suffers terribly because he is unable to satisfy his senses. The spirit souls in the Brahmajyoti, although they have no desire for sense gratification, still they feel inconvenience like the ghost, and they fall down again in the Maya's atmosphere and develop a material body. Next, and then he says, in the Bhagavad, in the Srimad Bhagavatam, therefore it is said that persons who are impersonalists and do not develop the dormant devotional attitude, their intelligence is not pure. Because for want of a spiritual body, they come down again to the material world. In the Bhagavad-Gita, it is clearly said by the Lord that the only way of not coming back to the material world is to be promoted to the spiritual planets. Okay, so that is a quote from Bhagavad-Gita. There are two verses like that. First in the 8th chapter, 15th and 16th verse, it says, Abrahma bhuvana loka punar avartina rijana mama petya tukonteya samsidim paramam I'm sorry. Mam upetya punarjanma dukalayam asasvatam napavu manti mahatmana samsidim paramam gata. After attaining me, the great souls who are yogis in devotion never return to this temporary world. All right? Because they have attained the highest perfection. And then in the next verse, 16 says, Abrahma bhuvana loka punar avartina rijana mama petya tukonteya punar janma navidyate. From the highest planet in the material world down to the lowest, all are places of misery, wherein repeated birth and death took place. But one who attains to my abode, O son of Kunti, never takes birth again. So when Prabhupada says here, in the Bhagavad-Gita, it is clearly said by the Lord that the only way of not coming back to the material world is to be promoted to the spiritual planets. And then also in the 15th chapter, verse number 6, it says, Natad basayate suryo nasa sankuna pavaka yad gatva navivartante tad brahma paramam mama. That supreme abode of mine is not illuminated by sun or moon, nor by fire or electricity. Those who reach it never return to this material world. Okay, so For the impersonalist, there is no such assurance of not falling down in the whole Vedic literature. So, impersonalists are not guaranteed that they will not fall down from Brahmajyoti. Because in another place, Prabhupada will explain that the Brahmajyoti is already a fallen condition. You can only fall down from a non-fallen position, but Brahmajyoti is considered already fallen. And why is that? Because there's no devotional service in the Brahmajyoti. Right? So Prabhupada continues. He says, the conclusion is that without developing the spiritual body and without being situated on one of the spiritual planets, the so-called liberation is also illusion, liberation of attaining the Brahman effulgence. Or it is not complete. A spirit soul who falls down from the Brahmajyoti to the kingdom of Maya may have a chance of associating with a pure devotee, and then he may be elevated to the spiritual planets of Vaikuntha or to Goloka Vrindavan. From the Brahmajyoti, there is no direct promotion to the spiritual planets, and it is clearly stated in Bhagavatam that such souls fall down, patanti adha. So, this is the answer to the question, whether one achieves the Brahmajyoti by the Mayavad philosophy. Now, not everybody that's a Mayavadi will achieve Brahman realization. Most of them will not. They're too contaminated. But some of them may, by following Mayavad philosophy. Now, don't forget, Mayavad philosophy is explained by Sankaracharya in the Sarirak Bhasya, which is the book he wrote as an explanation of the of the Vedanta, but it's a false explanation. He skewed or changed many understandings and came up with this aberration called Mayavad philosophy. Why did he call it Mayavadi or Mayavad philosophy? Because they're worshiping something that is false. The Mayavadis say everything is false in the material world. Well, if everything is false in the material world, their philosophy has to also be false, because that's part of the material world, right? But they don't say that. They stay silent on that point. That's why they're called Mayavadis. They are worshiping something that is false. The whole concept of their philosophy that the material world is an illusion, it doesn't exist. There is no such thing as Vaikuntha and Goloka. There's only one thing. There's Brahman effulgence. And there are no infinite number of jivas. When the jiva is in the material world, he thinks or she thinks that they are a person, but when they deny their individuality and merge into the Brahman effulgence, there's only one soul, and that's the Brahman. So, in other words, they merge and become God in a sense. So the whole idea of the Mayavad philosophy is false. However, the answer to the question, the specific question was, are the souls of the Mayavadis that reach Brahman effulgence, and like we said, only a few of them actually do that. Right? And how about all the other souls, or maybe they were genuine impersonalists? Because yesterday, and previously, I made a distinction between a genuine impersonalist and a Mayavadi. There's a difference. The genuine impersonalist does not claim that there is no Vaikuntha, there is no Goloka, and there's no plethora of jivas. They say we don't know. We only know what our guru is teaching us, and the guru doesn't teach that there are no jivas. There's only one God. So, therefore, they are called you can call them genuine impersonalists. They don't make any false statements. But on the other hand, they say, we don't know. Okay, but we will find out eventually when our guru instructs us. So, therefore, both the genuine impersonalists and the Mayavadi nonsense will fall down eventually from the Brahmajyoti, because their knowledge of the absolute truth is incomplete. Now, the Mayavadis and the impersonalists, as long as they come in contact with a genuine devotee, both can attain, going back to Godhead, meaning Vaikuntha or Goloka, if they follow the instructions. Now, in the case of the genuine impersonalists, they are impersonalists in the material world, in the sense that they think that giving up all material desires will give them a elevated position, and some of them might even merge into the Brahmajyoti. But they have to come back again to the material world and continue to get instructed by their spiritual master to pass through the Brahmajyoti and go back to Godhead. So there are several cases of genuine impersonalists. One is Sukadeva Goswami, and the other is, I'll come to it in a second. Now, Sukadeva Goswami was Brahman realized, and therefore he stayed in the womb of his mother for 16 years, because he said, I have no desire to take birth, because there's no difference between my existence here and my existence outside of my mother's womb, so I'll just stay here, right? He was in a state of total self-satisfaction, but when he heard Srimad Bhagavatam, he had a reason to leave his mother's womb, and that is to teach the Srimad Bhagavatam and to expand it. He expanded the Srimad Bhagavatam tremendously during his period after he left the womb of his mother. And then also the four Kumaras, they were Brahman realized, and then they wanted to go to Vaikuntha. They didn't deny that there was a Vaikuntha. They didn't know anything about it. They didn't know too much about it. But when they got to the doors of Vaikuntha, they were not allowed in by Jaya and Vijay, who cursed them to fall down into the material world. But then Lord Krishna appeared before them, and when they saw the Lord, they gave their obeisances to the Lord, and they smelled the aroma of the tulsi leaves on the feet of the Lord, and they became purified completely. And at that point, they became devotees. So they are liberated eternally in the material world, right? And they understood the supreme personality of Godhead, Krishna, as the supreme truth. So we have two examples of people who were, let's say, genuine impersonalists. Why? Because they had bona fide gurus. They did not have a Mayavadi guru, and therefore they were able to go through the Brahman effulgence and right into the spiritual world with the spiritual body. Whereas the Mayavadis, even if they attain the Brahman effulgence, they will fall down eventually because they don't believe in the spiritual body also. They only believe that they're they merge into light and they no longer have a body. So you see, there's a lot of differences between a genuine impersonalist and a Mayavadi. So let's read some more about what Prabhupada says about this. There's a lot more. He says to a letter to Jagadisha in February 27th, 1970, he said, regarding your questions concerning the spirit souls falling into Maya's influence, it is not that those who have developed a passive relationship with Krishna are more likely to fall into nescient activities. Usually, anyone who has developed his relationship with Krishna does not fall down in any circumstance, but because the independence is always there, the soul may fall down from any position or any relationship by misusing his independence. But his relationship with Krishna is never lost. Simply it is forgotten by the influence of Maya. So, it may be regained or revived by the process of hearing the holy names of Krishna, and then the devotee engages himself in the service of the Lord, which is his original or constitutional position. The relationship of the living entity with Krishna is eternal, as both Krishna and the living entity are eternal. The process is one of revival only, nothing new. Okay, so that's another additional information about the jiva. And so then in a letter to Raya Rama in December 2nd, 1968, Prabhupada says, the answer to your question about the marginal energy is that the jiva soul is always called marginal energy, whether he is in the spiritual world or in the material world. There are instances where marginal energy jiva souls have fallen from the spiritual world. Okay? So someone has said, oh no, it's impossible. No one can fall from the spiritual world. There it is. He's saying it is possible. There are instances, he says. Just like Jaya and Vijaya. So the potency to fall under the influence of the lower energy is always there, and thus the individual jiva soul is called as Krishna's marginal energy. Marginal means you can go both ways. You know, either you can go back to Vaikuntha, or you can fall down in the material world. Our relationship with Krishna is never broken. It's just that if we become envious of Krishna, then we forget about Krishna completely. In order to commit sins, you have to forget about Krishna. So, for us, even initiated devotees, for initiated devotee who desires sinful activity, eventually they have to forget about Krishna in order to perform those sinful acts. So forgetfulness is our disease, and we're forgetting all the time. Okay, so now, in another letter to a devotee named Harinama, in December 21st, 1968, your second question about falling down from the Brahmajyoti is answered, that it is not that one must fall down, but that they generally fall down. There is a verse in Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th canto, 2nd chapter, verse 26, which says, my dear lotus-eyed personality Godhead, persons who are very proud of becoming one with the Brahma effulgence and thereby consider that they have become liberated are factually in a contaminated consciousness on account of the absence of devotional service unto you. Such persons may rise to a high level of spiritual understanding as far as the impersonal Brahmajyoti, but on account of the lack of devotional service unto you, they generally fall down again into material contamination. The final question, which was asked by Toshana about the validity of the story of the sparrow in the ocean, you should know that everything is found in these scriptures. Everything that is found in these scriptures is factual. There is nothing allegory, but you must not depend upon your own limited experience. What happens in different corners of the Lord's creation, no one can say, but we can hear from the authentic Vedic sources such as the Puranas. This story of the sparrow is found in the Puranas. Okay, that has nothing to do with Jiva, but it's just an interesting point that Prabhupada makes. Next, again in a letter to Jagadisha in April 25th, 1970. So the first letter to him was February 27th, 1970. Regarding your questions about how and from where did the conditioned souls fall, your first question, if someone has a relationship with Lord Krishna on Krishna Loka, does he ever fall down? The souls are endowed with minute independence as part of their nature, and this minute independence may be utilized rightly or wrongly at any time. So there is always the chance of falling down by misuse of one's independence. But those who are firmly fixed up in devotional service to Krishna are making proper use of their independence, and so they do not fall down. So he's saying it's possible that you can fall down even from Vaikuntha. So then next he says, regarding your second question, have the conditioned souls ever seen Krishna? Were they with the Lord before being conditioned by the desire to lord it over material nature? Yes, the conditioned souls are parts and parcels of the Lord, and thus they were with Krishna before being conditioned, just as the child must have seen his father, because the father places the child in the womb of the mother. Similarly, each soul has seen Krishna or the Supreme Father. But at that time, the conditioned souls are resting in the condition called susupti, which is exactly deep sleep without dream, or anesthetized state. Therefore, they do not remember being with Krishna when they wake up in the material world and become engaged in material affairs. I hope this will satisfy your questions. Okay, then in the letter to Bhaktinandan in June 13, 1970, Prabhupada says, the next question about the living entities falling down in the material world are not from the impersonal Brahman. Okay. Existence in the impersonal Brahman is also within the category of non-Krishna consciousness. Those who are in the Brahman effulgence, they are also in the fallen condition. So there is no question of falling down from a fallen condition. When fall takes place, it means falling down from the non-fallen condition. The non-fallen condition is Krishna consciousness. So long one can maintain pure Krishna consciousness, he is not fallen down. As soon as he becomes out of Krishna consciousness, immediately he is fallen down. It does not matter where a living entity stays. In the material world also, there are different stages of living conditions, and to remain in the Brahman effulgence is also another phase of that fallen condition. Just like in the Bhagavad-Gita is stated that conditioned souls, by their pious activities, are elevated to the higher planetary system, but as soon as the stock of pious activities is finished, he again comes down on the earthly planet. Similarly, those who are elevated beyond the planetary systems in the material world to the Brahman effulgence, they are also prone to fall down as much as a living entity from the higher planetary systems. So someone who attains the planets of the Devas will also eventually fall down. And in the same way, those who attain Brahman realization will also eventually fall down. As such, those who are thinking they are liberated by being situated in Brahman effulgence are described in the Srimad Bhagavatam as impurely intelligent. In other words, they are actually not liberated. And because they are not actually liberated, they again come down to the material world as much as a living entity elevated to the higher planetary system comes down to this earthly planet. So we do not accept anyone elevated to the Brahman effulgence as actually liberated. Now again, another letter, July 9th, 1970, to Jagadisha, who keeps asking questions about the fall of the jiva. He says, regarding your several questions, where are the spirit souls coming from that are taking microbe bodies? It is not a matter of any particular body. These spirit souls and all spirit souls are coming from Vaikuntha. But in these material worlds, they are taking various grades of bodies according to their material activities. There is no new soul. New and old are due to this material body, but the soul is never born and never dies. So if there is no birth, how can there be a new soul? Your second question, is there any particular reason why some spirit souls become directed toward Krishna consciousness in the first place? How does one get on the progressive path of elevation to Krishna consciousness? The answer is that it is by the mercy of the Lord that one comes in contact with a spiritual master, meaning a bona fide spiritual master, who can revive the dormant Krishna consciousness of the conditioned soul. Krishna is always merciful, and he comes himself. He leaves behind him instruction like the Bhagavad-Gita, etc., and he sends his representative, the spiritual master. In this way, the merciful propaganda is going on. Every individual soul has got the discriminating power, so those who are pious, they take advantage of this opportunity of the mercy of the Lord. But both pious and impious souls are being convinced by this Krishna consciousness movement. The human being is supposed to be intelligent more than the animals, so the intelligent persons or pious persons are coming in contact with Krishna consciousness. So, devotees, they don't only go and preach to pious people. They go to impious people or nonsense people also, and try and help them come to Krishna consciousness. Regarding your question with reference to Bhagavad-Gita 3.5 and the Vedic hymn quoted in the purport to Bhagavad-Gita 14.5 and the statement, when the living entity is bewildered in his desires, the Lord allows him to fulfill those desires. That's in Bhagavad-Gita 5.15 in the purport. You have quoted, the Lord engages the living entity in pious activities so he may be elevated. The Lord engages him in impious activities so he may go to hell. End of quote. So that is also originally the individual soul's desire. And as super soul, the Lord is giving everyone the opportunity to go to heaven or to hell or to Vaikuntha if he so desires. So heaven means the planets of the demigods. Hell, of course, you know what that means. And Vaikuntha is the spiritual world. So he says you have these three choices. You can go to heaven, material heaven, the Devalokas. You can go to hell, the lower planets, where there's constant suffering. Or you can go back to Vaikuntha. For those who are hankering after material opportunities, the Lord as Super Soul is giving them the opportunities to enjoy the material nature, and the facility is being supplied by the material nature. So, everything's going to depend on what our desires are. So, if we have bad association, we'll desire to stay in the material world. And if we have the opportunity, the blessing to associate with genuine devotees and also even meet pure devotee or devotees, then we have a great chance of going back to the spiritual world and bypassing hell, heaven, and going back to the spiritual world. Okay, so everything depends on association, and everything depends on constant association in order to make constant spiritual progress. So therefore, if we look at what is our condition in this life, we all are born in ignorance. That's why we have a material body. The body is the sum total of ignorance. And it's full of miseries. And it eventually is going to die. It grows and then it's going to die. So therefore, if you look at in a panoramic view, look at the word panoramic. In a panoramic view of life, our real activity should be only Krishna consciousness and not diverted to anything else, so that we can remember Krishna at the moment of death. What does it mean, panoramic?
Panorama means an unbroken view of the whole region surrounding an observer.
Yeah, you have the big picture, right? So if we look at life from with panoramic view of it, then the only real thing we should do in this life is to become Krishna conscious. Everything else would be a diversion. Now, if we can't do that because we still have some inherent material desires, and we learned this, everyone is born with the tendency to be attracted to Maya. Right? So, if you can't break that tendency, then you can learn how to dovetail everything you do into Krishna's service. But eventually, you should come to the point of completely rejecting material life and only being engaged purely in spiritual life. All right. So, the opportunity to dovetail where you can satisfy some of those material desires, but they will gradually be diminishing with the dovetailing, and then eventually completely go to Krishna's side and not have anything to do with Maya's side. Business is Maya. Associating with materialistic people is Maya. All those things are Maya. Right? But if we cannot extricate ourselves early on, and if we're born in families that promote associating with Maya people and Maya education and so forth, then if one comes in contact with genuine devotees, the devotees can teach them how to dovetail all their activities to Krishna consciousness. And that way eventually break all affection, break all attachment to, working in the material world, to increasing the family, for maintaining generation after generation, the family, blah, 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 right? All those things are actually unnecessary, but because of our tendency to be attracted to Maya, we get trapped unwittingly, in a sense. Look that word up, wit, W-I-T. So, therefore, it's necessary to have an association of genuine devotees to offset that tendency gradually by dovetailing, by learning how to dovetail all our activities into Krishna consciousness. Yes, what does that mean? Intelligence?
Wit is keen intelligence.
Yeah. Yeah, so unwittingly means no intelligence, just confusion in the brain. Okay, so Prabhupada continues. He says, similarly, a living entity who's desiring for spiritual upliftment, the Lord is giving him the opportunity of the Vedic literatures and the spiritual master. But his advice to all living entities is to give up all nonsense and everything else and surrender unto him. Oh yeah. Sarvadharman prityaja mamekam saranam braja ham tvam sarva papebhyo moksisyami mahasuchaha. He's basically saying, give up all these things. Working in IT or starting a business or this thing or that. Just give it all up and just take the Krishna consciousness completely. But the people can't do that. So therefore, they have to learn the art of work. It's called Yoga Koshalam. Let's see what it says in Bhagavad-Gita about that. The art of work. It's in the 2nd chapter and verse number Okay, anyway, it's in there somewhere in the 2nd chapter. Let me see if I can find it. Yeah, 50th verse. It says, Buddhi yokta jahatiha ube sukrite duskrite tasmat yogaya yujasva yoga karmasu koshalam. So it says, a man engaged in devotional service rids himself of both good and bad actions, even in this life. Therefore, strive for yoga, which is the art of all work. Okay? So what is this art of all work? in the purport, Prabhupada says, since time immemorial, each living entity has accumulated the various reactions of his good and bad work. As such, he is continuously ignorant of his real constitutional position. That's the point. We don't understand what is our real constitutional position is to be always Krishna conscious, to be always engaged in devotional service, to be always remembering Krishna and glorifying him, and always following Krishna's instructions. That's our real constitutional position. Somehow or other, due to attraction to Maya and the tendency to be attracted to Maya, because we're in a marginal position, we have forgotten what is our real constitution, who we actually are. And we've assumed these personas, look that word up, persona, these false identifications of ourselves. Member of this family, member of this race, member of this ethnicity, member of this political party, member of this business, member of this, member of that. And we've completely forgotten our relationship with Krishna. What does it say, persona?
It says the aspect of someone's character that is presented to or perceived by others.
Okay, so we assume these personas, and others think, oh yeah, he is a Republican. Yes, he is one of us. You know, oh yeah, he's a Democrat. He's one of us, right? So you assume a persona. Just like I've told this story before, I'll tell it again. There's a group, and see, there are many different types of music, right? And some of those groups have started in Seattle. Like, for example, there was the grunge rock. Have you ever heard of that? Grunge music? Half your life is over if you haven't heard of it. Look it up, grunge, Grung. Grunge music. And the person was, I forget his name. I always forget the name of demons. What does it say?
It's an alternative rock genre.
Genre. It's not genre. Genre. It's a French word.
Okay. Genre and subculture that emerged in mid-1980s in Pacific Northwest state, Seattle.
Yeah, it's a Seattle nonsense. Yeah, and does it say the name of the rock musician who made it famous? It has to say that. I forgot his name.
Kurt Cobain?
Yeah, that's Kurt Cobain. Okay. He was the guy that started that grunge music. It's a type of music. So now there's another thing that started in Seattle. It's called zombie rock.
Yeah, that you mentioned last time.
Yeah, I've told you about the zombie rock. So zombie rock is like this. Boom, kill, boom, murder, the devil, boom, misery. You know, that's yeah. So there's a whole group of people following that. They're still around. So these are personas that people assume. Just like you send your kid to school, and the first 7, 8, 10 years in school, they're dressed normally, and their hair is normal, and they don't look weird in any way. They don't have tattoos, and they don't have mutilation of the body or anything like that. But then they assume a persona because they come in contact with either grunge rock, or they come in contact with zombie rock or some other rock, and all of a sudden they wear all black clothes, they have piercings, they have tattoos, right? They put on the military black shoes, and the whole culture changes, right? They walk in a funny way, like some kind of a crazy person, and then they go even further. They mutilate the body. They get 2 lumps in their head, so they look like the devil. And then or else they join a Mexican gang, and they have tattoos all over their face and piercings and things like that, right? And you see them walking around. You go to different parts of Seattle, and you'll see these people walking around like that, as if they're normal, right? So there are all these personas that they assume due to bad association. See? Now, other people, they think, I got to go into IT. Or someone says, well, I got to get into business and banking, and I'm going to start my own, what do you call that? My own stock company, right? And sell junk stocks and become a billionaire, right? And so they go ahead.
You're talking about SPAC?
What?
SPAC is a new entity where they're combining companies and then
Yeah, okay. They want to be a raider.
Yeah.
Yeah, and buy companies and break them apart and fire people and make $1 million, having paid only $100,000 for the company that was going bankrupt, right? So but usually to get such sweet deals like that, you have to have some political backing. You can't get those deals simply on your own. You wouldn't be able to come close to it. You have to have some corrupt politicians that you've bribed to help you to get a company for pennies on the dollar. This is what happened in 2008. Many companies were sold in 2008. They were having financial difficulty for pennies on the dollar, right? And some people became, and it was because they had political backing to get those sweet deals. Anyway, here we see there is such a thing as the art of work. And that is learning. Let's see what Prabhupada says. One's ignorance can be removed by the instruction of the Bhagavad-Gita, which teaches one to surrender unto Lord Shri Krishna in all respects and become liberated from the chained victimization of action and reaction, meaning karma, birth after birth. Arjuna is therefore advised to act in Krishna consciousness, the purifying process of resultant action. So in other words, if you become Krishna conscious, you can stop the whole issue of karma and become akarmic, acting without any material reaction, only with spiritual benefit. That is the art of work. Okay, so I diverted a little bit, but it's good to know these things. So, therefore, Prabhupada continues in this letter, the living entity, by accepting one kind of opportunity, is going to hell, and by accepting the other kinds of opportunities, he's going back home, back to Godhead. So both opportunities are offered by the Lord. Therefore, indirectly, you can say that one is being sent to hell and one is being sent to the spiritual world by the Lord. But he is simply supplying the opportunities to everyone as he desires. So therefore, everything depends on desires. And desires evolve by association. We have to understand this. If we don't understand this, we are like sheeple. You know what a sheeple is? A sheeple is a person. It's not actually an English word, but you can look it up. If you look it up in the slang dictionary. A sheeple is a sheep. It has the mentality of sheep that just follow the leader blindly.
Yeah.
What's it say?
People compared to sheep in being docile, foolish, and are easily being led.
Right? So most people today are sheeples. They're not actually real persons. They look like real persons, but they're just being led by grunge music or zombie rock music or politicians or IT moguls or this or that. They're being led or misled because they have the tendency to be attracted to Maya. And we're born with that tendency. Because of previous lives, we engaged in so much Mayic activity that there's always a residue that remains. It's called kupam, technically, in Sanskrit. And we're born with it. And therefore, unless we are trained by genuine devotees, we can unwittingly feed that tendency for Maya by bad association. You see? And this is happening all the time. All right, so therefore, Prabhupada continues. Man proposes and God disposes. That is the sum and substance. But as a pure devotee of the Lord, you should not propose. Simply accept his proposal and surrender unto him. His meaning Krishna's proposal. What is Krishna's proposal? Manmanabhava madbhakto madhyajimam namaskuru mam ivaisasi satyam te pratijane priyosi me. He says in Bhagavad-Gita, verse number 65, he says, always think of me, become my devotee, worship me, and offer your homage unto me. Thus you will come to me without fail. I promise you this because you are my very dear friend. That's what he is recommending, right? But we might say, oh, I'm not ready to do that. First I have to become a millionaire. Then I can do it. No, you don't have to become a millionaire and then surrender to Krishna. Surrender to Krishna, and if you are like Prabhupada, that you're completely surrendered to Krishna, then simply by doing good things in Krishna consciousness, money will come. Prabhupada said, do something good for Krishna. Don't worry about money. It will come naturally. Right? You don't have to say, oh, if we do this thing, we'll have to spend so much money, and well, I'm afraid to do it. No, don't be afraid. But do something that's actually good for Krishna, something bona fide, not something bogus. And you'll see money will come. Because Krishna is the richest person in all the universes, right? So if you have a very rich father, you don't have to worry about money. Well, you got the richest father if you accept Krishna. You see the point? The whole question is a question of purity. If I can develop this purity of only wanting Krishna and only doing Krishna's beckoning, look that word up, B-E-C-K-I-N-G, beckoning. I think that's a word. Or beckon, B-E-C-K-E-N. O-N, okay, O-N.
Yeah, making a gesture with a hand, arm, or head to encourage someone to come nearer or follow.
Please, Krishna, Haribol, I'm praying to you. Please, give me the intelligence to do the right thing, right? You're beckoning Krishna. Basically, it's like begging, right? But it's a more classy word. Okay, so far the conditioned soul is concerned, the same opportunities are there. But if he does not take advantage of the opportunity to elevate himself to Krishna consciousness and chooses to misuse his independence for taking the opportunity to enjoy some material happiness, then he will remain conditioned as the Lord will allow him to fulfill those desires. Whoa, be very careful what you're desiring. Because you say, oh, I'm chanting my round, Hare Krishna, boy, I really wish I could make some more money. Hare Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, and I really wish, I could get along with my wife. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. I got to go down to Costco to Hare Krishna, Krishna. Yeah. So if your mind is like that while you're chanting Hare Krishna, full of desires, it keeps getting diverted easily to those desires or hatred or whatever it is. Right? Be careful, because be careful what you wish. Be careful what you're desiring, because Krishna, what does it say? Here, let me read it again. So far the conditioned soul is concerned, the same opportunities are there. Same opportunities. Either you can go to Maya or you can go to Krishna. The opportunity is there. But if he, meaning the person, does not misuse his independence for taking the opportunity to enjoy some material happiness, then he will remain conditioned as the Lord will allow him to fulfill those desires. So if you don't take if you misuse your independence and take the opportunity to enjoy material happiness, then the the person will remain conditioned, as the Lord will allow him to fulfill those desires. The opportunity is always there, just as we are offering so many ways to become Krishna conscious. But if you don't take the opportunity, what can I do? This is Prabhupada speaking. What can I do? Speaking to his disciple in the letter to Jagadisha. He said, what can I do? I've given you everything. I gave you Bhagavad-Gita, I gave you Srimad Bhagavatam, I gave you Chaitanya Charitamrita, I gave you a temple, I gave you a lifestyle, I gave you prasadam, I gave you all these things. But if you don't want it, what can I do? Right? The opportunity is always there, just as we are offering so many ways to become Krishna conscious. But if you don't take the opportunity, what can I do? That is purposeful negligence of duty. In other words, after giving all these things to us, if we don't really take to it, that is called negligence of duty. That in the army, negligence of duty means they put you in jail, a military jail. They first convict you of negligence. It's called purposeful negligence. It's not stupid negligence. It's purposeful negligence. They put you in jail, right? And that's what Krishna does. That's what Maya does. She said, oh, you want to be with me, huh? Okay, now I'm going to put you in my jail. You'll be there for many, many lifetimes, running around, looking for sense gratification, always in trouble, always in anxiety, and always, who knows what body you'll have. You know, always in a dog body or a cat body or a cockroach body or whatever body, right? But you're always going to be in anxiety and always going to be hassled. So this negligence, that is purposeful negligence of duty. The example may be given of a man who is sleeping. If he is actually sleeping, he may be wakened by various means, but there is no doubt that he must wake up. However, if a man is pretending to be asleep, there is no way at all to rouse him up. So if we're pretending to be Krishna conscious, but yet we're constantly meditating on Maya, you can come to class, you can even do different services, but it's not going to purify the mind. It may help through good association, but usually people who have those material desires, they avoid good association with devotees, even though they're doing service, even though they are chanting, but it's not good chanting, and they can't get these thoughts out of their mind. Right? The only way you can get those thoughts out of mind is by constantly asking questions and hearing the answers from genuine devotees. What are the answers? The answers have to be what Prabhupada said, because he is our principal guru for everybody in ISKCON. Okay, so there's one other thing two other things I want to read, and we're going to ask questions. What time is it now?
7:25.
Oh, okay. Well, today is Sunday, so we can take a little bit of extra time. Prabhupada, Brahmajyoti is combination of jiva soul. It should be jiva souls. And Brahmajyoti is emanation from Krishna. Brahmajyoti is coming from Krishna. This is a function. Heat is coming constantly, incessantly from the fire, but still the heat is not fire. You cannot say that heat is fire. Now, devotee asks a question. That's right. So the constitutional nature of the entities that naturally form Brahmajyoti is the same as the constitutional nature of the jivatmas that are forming the living entities? Prabhupada, yes, it is comparison. A small spiritual spark, that's all. We are spark. So long it does not develop a body. That body is also the same. So it remains as spiritual spark. But because it is spirit, it cannot remain in that impersonal stage. He wants to enjoy. So long he has forgotten, he develops a body which is called matter. Okay. Another devotee. Or else he develops a spiritual body, one or the other? Prabhupada, no. He is spirit, spiritual identity already. But as we are developing material body, similarly, we can develop spiritual body. Okay. So if you're in a Brahmajyoti, you do not actually have a body. You're like a spark of light or a pencil of light. Then next question. You very clearly explained to me once in a letter that if the spirit soul then goes into the Brahmajyoti, he is considered still fallen. Does that mean the whole Brahmajyoti is composed of fallen souls? You see my question? If I go there, I'm a jiva soul, and I go to Brahmajyoti, I'm still fallen? Prabhupada, yes. Ribhatinandana. That means all jiva souls there are also fallen souls? Prabhupada, yes. Ribhatinandana. That follows? Prabhupada. That is explained in Bhagavad-Gita. Vibhinamsa. Separated parts. Vibhinamsa. You can call it fallen. Devotee. But we usually think of fallen as being forgetful. Prabhupada, yes. This is also forgetfulness. In the Brahmajyoti, you're forgetful still, because that is stated in the Shastra. Anadrita yusmad angrayaha. Anadrita. They do not know how to adore the lotus feet of Krishna. That is forgetfulness. So there's no devotional service in the Brahmajyoti. Therefore, it's a fallen position. And even though it's spiritual. Brahmajyoti is eternal. But there is no knowledge and bliss. So therefore, there's incomplete knowledge of God. Therefore, it's fallen. Okay, and the last thing I'm going to read, these are all Prabhupada's statements. This is in Brahma Samhita, 5th chapter, of course, 16th verse. And he says, the innumerable jivas as spiritual particles emanating from the oversoul in the form of pencils of rays of effulgence. Then this is Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's purport to Brahma Samhita 5:16. Have no relation with the mundane world when they come to know themselves to be the eternal servants of the Supreme Lord. They are then incorporated into the realm of Vaikuntha. But when they desire to lord it over Maya, forgetting their real identity, the egotistic principle Sambhu, meaning Lord Shiva, entering into their entities, makes them identify themselves as separated enjoyers of mundane entities. Hence, Sambhu is the primary principle of the egotistic mundane universe and of perverted egotism in jivas that identifies itself with their limited material bodies. Okay, and then it says, in the Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Lila 10, 168, in the purport it says, the translation of verses, O Skayana Bharata, you should understand that I am also the knower in all bodies, and to understand this body and its knower is called knowledge. That is my opinion. So that's a verse also. Bhagavad-Gita 13:3. And in the purport, Prabhupada says, the Supreme Personality Godhead in its Paramatma feature is expanded everywhere. The Brahma Samhita says, Andantarasta Paramanu Chayantarastam. By virtue of his all-pervasive nature, the Supreme Lord is within the universe as well as within all elements of the universe. He is even within the atom. In this way, the Supreme Lord Govinda is all-pervasive. On the other hand, the living entities are very, very small. It is said that the living entity is 1/10,000th of the tip of a hair. Therefore, the living entity is localized. Living entities rest in the Brahman effulgence, the bodily rays of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. There you go. So, then in Brahma Samhita 5:35, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati says, Krishna is the highest of all entities. In him is an entity which is termed chit, spiritual, which is distinct from the principle of limitation. By his inconceivable power, he can at will create numberless universes. All the mundane universes owe their origin to the transformation of his eternal external potency. Again, his abode is beyond human conception, meaning the spiritual abode, Vaikuntha, is beyond material conception. Since all worlds, limited and spiritual, or chit, exist in him, and he resides simultaneously in his fullness and entirety in all the atoms in all the worlds, all pervasiveness is only localized. All pervasiveness is only a localized aspect of the majesty of Krishna, the Lord of all. Though he is all-pervasive, yet in his existence everywhere in a medium shape consists his spiritual lordship beyond human conception. This argument favors the doctrine of simultaneous, inconceivable distinction and non-distinction, and knocks down the contaminating Mayavada and other allied doctrines. Okay, so there's more to be said about this, but this is an answer to the question that a devotee asked a couple days ago. Are the jivas who enter Brahman effulgence by Mayavad philosophy the same or on an equal level as the bona fide impersonalists who attain Brahman effulgence? The answer is they both will have to come back to the material world and associate with pure devotees to bypass the Brahmajyoti, because there's no elevation from Brahmajyoti to Vaikuntha. You have to come back. And if you read also the Bhagavad-Gita, which is very advanced scripture, we have copies of it in our library, the story of the devotee who goes to Vaikuntha, but yet is not completely satisfied. So he has to come back again to the material world in order to develop, through association with pure devotees, the desire to go to Goloka, Vrindavan.
Gopakumara.
Yeah. You can read that. So you see, there's no elevation from the Brahmajyoti. Now, this devotee go to Kumar. He went to Brahmani effulgence. Then he came back. Then he went to Vaikuntha. Then he came back again. Then he went to Goloka. See? So everything depends on association. So there's no association in Brahmajyoti. Everyone's impersonal. There is association in Vaikuntha, and there is possibility of elevation from Vaikuntha to Goloka, but it's more, let's say, direct, like coming back to the material world and associating with pure devotees. Anyway, we will stop right there. Are there any questions?
I think Prabhupada mentions in
Yes.
that at some point we were in contact with Krishna, because everybody has to come originally.
Yeah.
But I think the explanation Prabhupada, the example Prabhupada gives is just like a child was in contact of the father in the form of the seed, even though the awareness may not be there. Is that like one of the reasons why we do not have the taste of Krishna?
You were with your mother when you were born, right? Do you remember it?
Yeah, that's what
you don't remember it.
Yes.
But you can't deny it.
Correct.
The same way, we were all with Krishna originally. We've forgotten, that's all. But we can't deny it. Just like you cannot deny you were with your mother when you were born. Go ahead.
But that's an analogy of in the material world where we'll always forget. But in the spirit soul, when the creation itself, aren't we supposed to be full of knowledge? That means like we should be aware of Krishna.
You can be full of knowledge, but still, by coming too close to the material world, coming to the edge of Vaikuntha, where you have a glimpse of the material world, you can become bewildered and desire to fall down. and depending if you have some enviousness of Krishna. So just like we're living here, but let's say you go on a trip and you climb Mount Rainier, right? You can't do it now, it's still full of snow, but in a month or two it'll snow, most of it, not all of it, but a lot of it will melt. And you have a desire to climb the mountain, right? It's like my son did climb, he trained to climb Mount Rainier. But the day he went up there, it was a really stormy day. So he didn't exactly get to the top. But he went up really high, but he wasn't able to get to the top. It was too dangerous. Anyway, let's say you do that, and you get up to the top of the mountain, and you look down, and you get confused and scared, and then you slip and you die. So this is what happens to people. They go too close to the edge of Vaikuntha, and they get a glimpse of the material world. But the reason they went to that edge is because of envy of the Lord, and immediately they fall down. So it's possible to fall. Prabhupada said, we read it, it's possible to fall from any position. Yeah. So, and there's another thing I'm going to read. Prabhupada in a letter in June 9th, 1967. He says, a spirit soul is not impersonal, and because he is a person, he has the intent desire, the latent desire for sense gratification. See, again, he's mentioning this tendency for attraction to Maya, and he calls it a latent desire for sense gratification. But in the material condition, he does not know how to enjoy. Therefore, one should purify the senses, being free from all material designations. In conditioned stage, we are designated souls like American, Indian, dog, demigod, etc. But in pure consciousness or Krishna consciousness, we are part and parcel of the Supreme Brahman, Krishna. By Brahman realization, as you may have read in Bhagavad-Gita, Brahmabhuta prasanatma nasochati nakangsati. So in our pure stage, when we understand that we are eternal servants of Krishna, there is no more distress. Therefore, the devotee prays, my Lord, when shall I be freed from all material desires and be completely engaged in your transcendental loving service? At the present moment, I am forlorn and nobody is my master. When shall I have you as my supreme master? Then shall I joyfully wander over the whole universe, knowing that you are my master. End of quote of this prayer. Please, therefore, Prabhupada says, please, therefore, try to be in Krishna consciousness, and there will be no distress. Gradually, as you realize this, you will experience it also. But the process is the same, both at the beginning and at the end. That means chanting Hare Krishna, taking prasadam, and hearing classes, going on Sankirtan, distributing prasadam and books. This is the process. In the beginning and the end. If you go back to Godhead, you're going to do the same things. Chant Hare Krishna, take prasadam, etc. Right? So the means and the end are the same in Krishna consciousness. Right? Not for the Mayavadis. They might do a little bit of devotional service. They might read a little bit of the Shastras, even give lectures on the Srimad Bhagavatam. But in the end, they give it all up, and they just want to merge. You see, but Krishna consciousness, the beginning, the middle, and the end is the same. You always will be engaged in devotional service. Okay, we'll stop right there.
Yeah, one question.
Yes.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Maharaj, you mentioned I have a question regarding four Kumaras. Four Kumaras are sons of Brahma. So how they originally became impersonless?
Well, before you came to Krishna consciousness, were you an impersonalist?
I don't know.
Huh?
No, I was not impersonalist.
You were not an impersonalist? You always believed in God?
Yes, no.
Okay, good. the Kumaras were trained in the philosophy of Krishna consciousness. They're highly intelligent people. They're sons of Brahma, right? And they were not Mayavadis, right? But they had come to the level, just like Sukadeva Goswami, of impersonalism. What Prabhupada quotes the verse, Brahma Bhuta Prasanatma, na sochati na kangsati. They no longer had any sochati and kangsati. No hankerings for material sense gratification, and no regrets. They were not missing anything in the material world. They lost any desire for sense gratification, right? All right. But that is not pure Krishna consciousness. That's simply elevation from material sense gratification and losing the attraction to Maya. But that is not yet pure Krishna consciousness. So that's considered an impersonal state. But when they met Lord Krishna, they became Krishna conscious. So when you hear about Krishna's unique qualities in Bhagavad-Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, as we have been doing previous classes now, and we're going to keep hearing about it, then you realize he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. I'm going to completely surrender to him, just like Arjuna did. Arjuna was not surrendered in the beginning of Bhagavad-Gita, right? In the battlefield, he was not surrendered. He refused to follow Krishna's order. But after he asked so many questions of Krishna and got all the answers and found out all the unique qualities of Krishna and his eternal relationship with Krishna, he surrendered. He became fully Krishna conscious. Okay? So it's not a negative thing to be an impersonalist or have impersonal realization, as long as you're on the progressive path of Krishna consciousness. And you might be surprised by this. One second, let me just find that quote. As long as one does not have the association of a pure devotee, the impersonal conception may be beneficial. This is Bhagavad-Gita. He said may be beneficial, right? That is verse 12th chapter, 20th verse. Did you ever hear this in the Bhagavad-Gita?
I forgot,
Huh?
I could not remember.
Yes, so you've read it,
Yes, yes.
but you can't remember it. That's why it's important to come to class. Prabhupada says that as long as one does not have the chance to associate with a pure devotee, the impersonal conception may be beneficial. Okay? Haribol.
So, Maharaj, quick question. So, Maharaj, we read about this, and I think this is always a very confusing topic to among at least myself. And so we read that based on your desire, you can fall down from anywhere, right? But based on desire and associated, you may not. But this is based on what the few letters you read today. But this is little bit conflicting to me, because when I saw this, this Bhagavad-Gita 15.6, it says that na tadbhasayate suryo na shashanko na pavakaha yad tva na nivartante taddham paramam mama, which says that supreme abode of mine is not illuminated by the sun or moon, nor by fire or electricity. Those who reach it never returns to this material world. So this kind of, if Krishna is saying this in Bhagavad-Gita, that you never return, but
that's
I think
after falling down. If you go back, you'll never return. It's not that, because it's possible to fall. Now, first of all, a majority of the people never fall down from Vaikuntha or Goloka. Only a small number of people fall down. Only maximum 1/4. Well, not even that. It's a small number of people fall down. Not everybody. There are people who never fall down from Vaikuntha. therefore it's the general rule, never to fall down from Vaikuntha. There is a small number of people that do fall down. Now, when I say small, you say, what do you mean? There's trillions of living entities in the material world. Yeah, but that's a small number when you compare it to the number of living entities that are eternally liberated in the spiritual world. See, we're so squeezed in the material world. Our consciousness is so squeezed and limited here. We can't imagine the numbers that are involved in Krishna's, existence. Krishna, first of all, expands himself infinitely. That's him. That's not. So therefore, there's an infinite number of living entities, because Krishna is infinite in everything, and we are infinitesimal. We have such limited consciousness. We can't imagine these things. Okay, so there's no contradiction here. Some people fall down, but when they go back again, they'll never fall down. Just like if you get a phone call and it said, Mr. What's your last name?
Chopra.
Yeah, Mr. Chope, you have just won a free 2 tickets to go to Mazatlan, Mexico. You'll get a free car, you get free hotel, free meals, and you'll have spending money also. How do you want to receive this benefit? You want it by snail mail, you want it by email. And you say, I want it by, and the third thing is you can just pick up the ticket at the ticket counter when you check in. You say, okay, I'll pick it up at the ticket counter. All right. So the day comes, you, your wife, your kids, all their baggage is there. You go to the airport, and you go to the ticket counter with the airline that you're supposed to take, and they say, what's your name? Or can I see your passport? And you say, yeah, I'm on this flight. And they look at your passport, they look at your name, they look you up on the sheet of names of people, and they say, well, you're not here. You say, what? No, I got a free ticket. I got a free car, free ticket, free food, money to spend. I won this ticket. They said, your name's not here. I said, that's not possible. No, your name is not here. Then you say, oh my God. And I gave my Social Security number to those people also. Then you look in your bank account, you're $5,000 in less money. And the whole thing was a hoax. But you got so excited, you just went along with it. Now, the next time someone calls you up and said, Mr. Chopada, you just won a wonderful prize, a free ticket to Cancun, Mexico. How do you want to receive the ticket? Snail mail, email, or you want to pick it up at the airport? What would you tell that person?
Go away.
Huh?
I say no, go away. Sorry.
That's why if you fall down to the material world and stay here, hundreds and millions of lifetimes, right, and eventually become Krishna conscious and go back, do you think you would fall down again? Just like you think you would accept the Cancun ticket?
So as long as Maharaj, I remember whatever happened previously.
You're never going to forget.
If I forgot
Prabhu,
it, that probably again.
You're never going to forget. Believe me. You're not dumb enough to get fooled the second time, are you?
Yeah.
See, so you would not fall down.
But we do not know how many chances we have been given, right? Like when we fall down, we are again here, but we are again in the same situation like we did last time. How do we know?
No, but if you go through the whole process to become Krishna conscious and go back to Godhead, you would never fall down again. Never. Because you'd be fully conscious. If you never fell down, but you became attracted to the material world, you can fall down. But once you fall down, you go through so many lifetimes and eventually become Krishna conscious and fully Krishna conscious, not halfway for Krishna, fully Krishna conscious, fully dedicated, you would never fall down again. Guaranteed. Okay? Hare Krishna. Who's going to chant? One of the kids want to chant? Yeah, good. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'll take the pen. Yeah. Hare Krishna. Start. Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakati Sadma Pandamoyi Savadana Mate Jahara Prasadevai Ye Bhavatoriya Jai Jai Krishna Prapti Hoy Jaha Hoyte Guru Mukha Padma Vakya Chitete Koriya Kya Arana kori ho mane asha Chakshudan dilo jai janme janme Prabhu se Divya Jnana Hriday Prakashito Prema Bhakti Jaha Hote Avidya Vinasha Jate Prema Bhakti Jaha Hote Avidya Vinasha Jate Vidigai Jahara Charito Shri Guru Karuna Sindhu Adama Janara Bandhu Lokena Lokera Jivana Lokena Lokera Jivana Ha ha Prabhu Koro Daya Deho More Pada Chaya Ha Prabhu Koro Daya Deho More Pada Chaya Ebe Jash Gushukti Bhuvana Prabhupada Patita Pavana Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Namah Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Iti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Pasyatya Deshatarine. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Nitai Gaura Haribo, 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 Nitai Gaura Haribo. lotus feet of our spiritual master are the only way by which we can attain pure devotional service. I bow to his lotus feet with great awe and reverence. By his grace, one can cross the ocean of material suffering and obtain the mercy of Krishna. My only wish is to have my consciousness purified by the words emanating from his lotus mouth. Attachment to his lotus feet is a perfection that fulfills all desires. He opens my darkened eyes and fills my heart with transcendental knowledge. My Lord, birth after birth. From him ecstatic prema emanates. By him ignorance is destroyed. Vedic scriptures sing of his character. The spiritual master is the ocean of mercy, the friend of the poor, and the Lord and master of the devotees. O Loknath Goswami, O Master, be merciful unto me. Give me the shade of your lotus feet. Your fame is spread all over the three worlds. Of your lotus feet.